What's going on, everybody? It's Pacman Jones with Savannah Seaport News. So you guys already know the first video that I ever done on my YouTube channel was a video that I done about camouflage. Now that video itself, I done a really bad editing job because of the fact that Universal Music Group really owns a lot of camouflage music and videos. So in that first video, I did a very poor editing job. But a lot of people still like it, even though I have the original video on my Facebook. I have the link in the description. The Facebook version is better than the YouTube version because the Facebook version, I didn't have to put any edits into it. I could put it just straight up on Facebook. I didn't have any restrictions on that. But first video I done about camouflage, it was really premature. I left out a lot of information. I really didn't want that to be my first video, but I just wanted to provide everybody that was watching my YouTube channel about, I guess, one of the most simplest videos that you can do, about camouflage, because hey, who doesn't know about camouflage? Now, I left a lot of things out about that. Now, Camoflauge, he dropped 3 studio albums. His first one, I Represent, was released in 2000. His second one, Strictly for the Streets, Drugs, Sex, and Violence, Volume 1, was released in 2001. And his third album, Keeping It Real, was released in 2002. And oh, by the way, I am doing a crime affiliates video separate. There's a lot of information that I have to research about crime affiliates, the whole group, because if you guys don't know, Camoflauge was a part of a rap group called Crime Affiliates that I believe that had 2 other members in that rap group. But anyways, more about Camoflauge, Jason Johnson. In the year 2000, the same year that I Represent came out, Camoflauge was also involved with a homicide or shooting that led to the death of a 16-year-old boy by the name of Kenneth Capers, aka Boo, on the night of July 30th, 2000. Now, Camoflauge served 3 months in Chatham County Jail before being released. He was not indicted of any of these charges for killing Kenneth Capers. Actually, also who was charged with the shooting as well was another person that I talked about in another video, James Murdoch Ferguson. He was actually charged with the shooting as well, but they couldn't put any charges on anything on both of these guys. None of these charges could stick or land. And more about Camoflauge alibi. Camoflauge said that he was home asleep when Capers was shot 3 times in the head while hanging out with some people on Rubin Court. The same month Capers was slain, Camoflauge dropped his Pure Pain album, I Represent, that climbed to number 58 on the top R&B and hip-hop albums. And another album that rose to the top on the hip-hop and R&B albums was the album Strictly for the Streets, Drugs, Sex, and Violence, Volume 1. That debuted at number 53 on R&B and hip-hop albums on the Billboard charts. And also about Camoflauge, what I didn't talk about, he was shot in the year 2002 on West 61st Street and suffered minor injuries. Now, that happened in September of 2002. And shortly after when he got shot, he moved out to the suburbs in Richmond Hill. Richmond Hill is Bryan County. That's a different county. That's not Chatham County. That's Bryan County. I go to Richmond Hill all the time. Richmond Hill is a nice place. There's no poverty in Richmond Hill. There's a lot of nice homes in Richmond Hill. But also about Camoflauge that I didn't say in my first video. I mean, you're talking about an artist that sold between 30,000 and 50,000 CD copies independently. So you're not talking about Major League selling those type of CDs. You're talking about an independent artist selling at least 30,000 CDs per album, on the streets. So Camoflauge was really making a lot of money. And I want to get to about his shooting, where he was killed on a Monday, May 19th, on 2003, outside Pure Pain Records around 4:30 p.m. that day. Now, Pure Pain Records is in that Coiler, Brownsville neighborhood area. That's the neighborhood on the west side. Pure Pain Records was located on the west side, directly on the west side, right on 37th Street. And also when he was killed, this is kind of where it gets kind of flimsy. I'm not so sure myself where if he was killed walking out of Pure Pain Studio or if he was trying to walk into Pure Pain Studio. There's some articles that say that he was walking to a store, so I'm not so sure, but it's a fact that he was really pretty much outside of Pure Pain Studios when he was shot and killed. But before I get into who was involved with his death, I want to say that I think I watched the best video of my life, the documentary about Camoflauge. Unfortunately, I cannot post the video about Camoflauge, the documentary about Camoflauge. It was a SCAD student that actually I reached out to, and she reached out to me because she actually made the video about Camoflauge. And this movie documentary, it has a lot of unseen footage of Camoflauge. Like, man, I was literally crying when I seen this movie. Like, and I say that being biased because I'm from Savannah, and me being from Savannah and the history of Camoflauge, I mean, there's nobody in the history of being in Savannah doesn't like Camoflauge. You know, everybody accepts his legacy, what he played a part in Savannah's hip-hop scene, not only in the hip-hop scene but just in Savannah. But I do want to touch about a little piece of the documentary that was said that about Camoflauge, about who killed Camoflauge. And in the documentary, people were saying that, yeah, people know who killed him, but people aren't really talking about it. Well, on Savannah Seaport News, we're going to talk about who killed Camoflauge. And the name has been floating around for years. I mean, this isn't private information. This isn't I'm digging up information. Well, I actually did dig up information, but the person that actually killed Camoflauge was a guy by the name of Dorian Orr. Now, before I go into that, I just want to say Camoflauge had a friend by the name of Michael Tarek Grant. Now, unfortunately, when I was doing my research, I couldn't find his picture, even though I seen some pictures floating around that could possibly be him, but I didn't want to use that picture because the research of doing his name, you got to think about it. He died in 2003, the guy, Michael Grant. He died 2 days before Camoflauge died. So getting this information, a lot of the information is old, and the formats and layouts for the information is quite barbaric. But Michael Tariq Grant was shot and killed, like I said, 2 days before Camoflauge died. Mike was killed on the 17th of May 2003, and it's said that Michael Grant was killed as payback for the May 16th 2003 shooting death of a convicted cocaine dealer, Felix Scott, a friend of Dorian Orr and Stephen Roston. Now I'm getting to that Roston name in a minute, but more about Felix Scott. Felix Scott was shot and killed 5 hours before Michael Grant died that same day. Now, Felix Scott was found shot and killed about 10 p.m. May 17th in a late model white Chevrolet pickup truck on Salvador and 58th Streets. That's on the east side, just north of De Lesseps Avenue. Now, let's get into Stephen Roston. Now, Stephen Roston was a friend of Dorian Orr. Now, Stephen Roston has a history in Savannah. In 1991, Roston, at the age he was at the time, he was 16 in 1991, he began serving a 10-year sentence after pleading guilty to voluntary manslaughter. According to the court and police records, Roston and a buddy were selling dope on a street corner in August 1990. A buyer stiffed them for $19 or $20 of crack cocaine, sending Roston and a friend, Torrance Lavon Jackson, into a rage. The two teens grabbed a sawed-off shotgun and a pistol and chased a man by the name of Harry Eugene Rick Williams. Now, about 2 a.m. that August 21st, they caught up with Harry Eugene Williams, aka Rick, and they caught him on East Park Lane and shot him 6 times. Roston used a shotgun. He shot Williams in the leg, and as Williams lay on the ground, Ralston stepped up and shot him again through the left eye. The blast obliterated Williams' brain. That's according to the autopsy report of the homicide victim. Also about Stephen Ralston, with that situation, there were witnesses in that situation, but the witnesses were too afraid to testify. And Stephen Ralston at the time, he was a freshman at Beach High School. He took a plea deal of voluntary manslaughter. And also his friend Torrance Jackson, who was 17 at the time, he got a bigger charge. He pleaded guilty to a charge of aggravated assault. He was sentenced to 14 years, but Stephen Ralston was sentenced to 10 years for the voluntary manslaughter. Now, the only person that was charged with the death of Michael Grant was Dorian Orr. And Dorian Orr, after that homicide and when he killed Camoflauge, he fled to Rochester, New York, because he fled there when he actually had family members that stayed up there. And just a quick little note, I just want to throw out a little rumor control. There's been a rumor that people from New York came and killed Camoflauge. No, that's not true. Dorian Orr fled to New York because he had family members in New York. So he was caught in New York, so nobody from New York killed him. He was actually killed by Dorian Orr, Camoflauge, but I'm gonna get to that in a minute. Dorian Orr had relatives in the Rochester area, but he was found at an apartment up there in New York. And Dorian Orr was also found guilty of the shooting death of Michael Grant. He was found guilty on February 3rd, 2005. And also, court documents filed in the district attorney's case against Dorian Orr for Grant's murder also named him as a suspect in Camoflauge death, even though he was never charged with killing Camoflauge, aka Jason Johnson. And not only that, but the only eyewitness to testify against Dorian Orr admitted to the stand that he came forward a day later, only after his sister talked him into it. His sister told him that it was the right thing to do. So Daryl Ferguson, the guy that told on Dorian Orr, Daryl Ferguson told jurors that he saw Orr killed Michael Grant about 3:30 a.m. in the front of a house party at a busy residential intersection. Prosecutors and police maintain Orr killed Grant to avenge Felix Scott's death. But also, when I want to talk about Dorian Orr, he was serving a life sentence, but that life sentence was reduced to voluntary manslaughter on 2007. And Dorian Orr's charges that were transferred from a life sentence to voluntary manslaughter, the voluntary manslaughter charges were accepted on July of 2007. So usually with voluntary manslaughter, that's anywhere between 1 and 20 years. Nobody really does the whole 20. But I seen in his case, I actually researched this, he has to do 10 years for the voluntary manslaughter. And I think that he has to do an additional 5. But I'm not so sure about that information. So it's either this. He either gets out summertime of this year, or he has to do additional 5 more years. I'm kind of confused on that. I was searching up more information on his release date, but I didn't see anything about Dorian Orr's release or anything about that. But Camoflauge, he was one of 28 homicides that happened in Savannah in 2003. And, you know, his homicide case is unsolved because, you know, people haven't charged Dorian Orr for Camoflauge death. They charged Dorian Orr for Michael Grant's death because supposedly, and I say this supposedly, Michael Grant killed Felix Scott. And, you know, that being said, you know, if that's true, Michael Grant killed Felix Scott, and Michael Grant died hours later, you know, 5 hours later. So, and I don't only say if because, you know, police couldn't confirm that if Michael Grant actually killed Felix Scott, because I mean, just imagine that situation. You kill somebody and 5 hours later you died from that. You know, you died 5 hours later afterwards. You know, police going to have a hard time processing the evidence and information and everything else. But you know, Camoflauge, he was the best to do it from Savannah ever. You know, nobody can do it like him ever. You know, and you know, his funeral was massive. I was in elementary at the time when he died, but you know, his funeral was massive. You know, over 2,000 people turned out to his funeral that same week on Friday. So you're talking about somebody that touched lives across Savannah. You know, from people that's in the age of 4, between the age of 4 to 60. You know what I'm saying? Like, he touched a lot of people's lives, you know, directly or indirectly. You know, Camoflauge was that person. But yeah, that movie was excellent, man. I'm glad I actually seen that movie. I believe that movie came out in October of last year. I just now seen it like 2 days ago, man. It's a beautiful movie. It has a lot of unaired and unseen footage of Camoflauge that I'm guessing that the family still owns that footage. And man, it's a lot of information, man. As soon as I could find out if it's available to the public, because it's on a different circuit, it's on a festival circuit, it's on a different type of circuit. So as soon as I know where it could be made public, I had seen it exclusively. She sent me the link, but I can't post that or put that anywhere. It's not on that public level yet. But man, as soon as I could find out where I could get that information and give it to y'all, I will, man. That's something that everybody from Savannah has to see. You know, just more about Camoflauge legacy, man, is deep. You know, it touches everybody. You know, when people still hear the intro to Cut Friends and a lot of his other songs, you know, people know it word for word, man. I mean, his legacy runs deep. You even see it on TV every day on Friday when Flauge comes on. I mean, Flauge is a blessing in herself, you know, just from her being from Savannah, and not only that, but her father's legacy and what Camoflauge passed down to her, even though they've never met, unfortunately. But I mean, it's powerful, man. That movie is powerful. But that's all that I want to give for right now. It's Pacman Jones with Savannah Seaport News, and I'm out.